Imagine a place on this planet that is so unique, so special, and so magical that anybody is welcome. No visa needed, no matter your passport. Sounds like utopia? Well, it kinda still exists, and its name is Svalbard. Svalbard is a group of islands only 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. It truly is mankind's last frontier. 60% of the island are covered by ice. It is home to 2,100 glaciers, a couple of thousand of people, and a lot of polar bears. It officially belongs to the Kingdom of Norway. Nevertheless, anybody is welcome here and can stay indefinitely as long as they can support themselves. So let me introduce this special place to you. Its wild nature and the peculiar rules that a place this remote needs its inhabitants to adhere by to keep them safe. We will also look at the cost of living of Svalbard, things to do in Svalbard, if Svalbard is suitable for digital nomad life, and how to actually live there short or long term. If you want to jump right to the description of how to move to Svalbard or rewatch some of this video at a later point, the timestamps are down below. Just click on them and they'll take you right where you want to go. I'll also link some travel resources there. Hi, my name is Sara, and on this channel I aim to provide you with everything you need to start the digital nomad lifestyle confidently. If that sounds like you, please click subscribe and hit the little notification bell. And with that said, let's get right into the video. Svalbard, or Spitsbergen as it's also called, is an archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. It is basically the most northern human settlement. On it, the largest settlement is Longyearbyen, with about 2,500 inhabitants from over 50 countries. In total, there are 5 settlements on Svalbard. Besides Longyearbyen, there is a Russian mining town called Barentsburg with about 450 inhabitants, mostly coal miners from Russia and Ukraine, although I don't know how that looks under the current political situation. And 3 more settlements, which are basically research facilities with researchers that, do polar research. Barentsburg lies about 55 kilometers from Longyearbyen. However, there are no roads connecting the two, so the best way to get there is by snowmobile. This has become a little less reliable due to global warming. So sometimes the ice is molten and then you have to either fly by a helicopter or have a boat. So you might wonder why I said that Svalbard was under Norwegian rule, but there is a Russian town here. Well, to be honest, the politics here are a little bit confusing, but I'll try to break them up as easily as possible. In theory, like I said, Svalbard belongs to Norway. However, in 1920, there was a treaty signed, the Svalbard Treaty, that allowed all signatories the right to live on Svalbard and explore its natural resources. And that is why there is a Russian settlement, because Russia, as one of the signatories of the treaty, has the right to mine coal on Svalbard. And the Russian government is represented there by a Russian consulate. This treaty actually is also the reason why everyone else can settle on Svalbard without a visa. Up to now, everyone has been welcomed, even if their country hasn't been a signatory of the treaty. The treaty furthermore regulates Svalbard as a free economic zone, meaning there are no taxes, and a demilitarized zone, so no military operations whatsoever. The place that you would most likely settle if you would move to Svalbard is Longyearbyen, which is also home to the most northern university in the world, and even more importantly, to the Global Seed Vault. The Global Seed Vault is a seed vault that is underground and that houses seeds to every plant that has ever been growing on this planet to protect biodiversity and our food source in case of some horrendous war or natural disaster. That is why the vault is located on Svalbard. Not only does the permafrost protect the seeds, but it is also far enough away from anything else on this planet to protect it from wars or any form of crisis. So, as I've already mentioned, the climate in Svalbard is permafrost, which means that even in summer, only the top layer of the ground thaws. Furthermore, Svalbard has 3 seasons: polar summer, northern lights winter, and sunny winter. If you want to live or visit Svalbard, there are some odd-seeming rules that I'd like to explain that you need to adhere to. The first one actually has to do with the permafrost we just talked about. Nobody can be buried on Svalbard. If you die, you will be shipped off to the Norwegian mainland. The reason for that is the permafrost, because it presses out everything that is buried underground. Longyearbyen actually has a cemetery, but there are no coffins remaining because the permafrost just kept pushing them up. Pregnant women should also not give birth on Svalbard. Here, the reason is mostly security or safety for the mother and child because of the remoteness of the island, meaning that the hospital, there is a hospital, is not equipped to handle emergencies when it comes to maternal care. So women that are pregnant are being flown to Norwegian mainland as soon as they are 8 months pregnant to ensure that they have a secure place to deliver their child. Then there are some rules that might refer more to the natural environment in Svalbard. Number one is that nobody locks their cars or their houses. For one, nobody robs each other because, everybody knows each other. It's a really safe place. But also to give everyone the possibility to find shelter from potential polar bears that you might want to hide from. Polar bears are a real threat in Svalbard, and if you are there long enough, there's a very good chance you will meet a couple. And they are the only predator that actively hunts humans. This is also why, if you want to leave the settlement of Longyearbyen, you need to carry a gun and a flare, ideally, or have somebody with you that is carrying. So as a tourist, this means that you will have to have a guide. For example, if you want to visit the abandoned mining town of Pyramiden. If you want to live in Svalbard for a longer time, it makes sense to register for a gun permit, which will take about 8 weeks, so that you can either buy or rent your own gun. However, in the settlement itself, it is forbidden to carry a loaded gun. People carrying a gun in Longyearbyen must carry it in a way that everyone sees that it is unloaded, and taking them into official buildings and shops is forbidden. There are usually safes at the entrance where people can leave their guns. When it comes to polar bears, know that these are fiercely protected, and every polar bear killed is a tragedy, meaning that even if one is killed in self-defense, there will be an inquiry where the person will have to prove that they did everything to avoid getting into contact with the polar bear in the first place. And if this can't be proven, there's a very hefty fine of thousands of dollars. And since polar bears are so precious, you will also find a lot of stuffed polar bears on Svalbard. This is because it is strictly forbidden to take polar bear remains off the island as well to protect them, and therefore they are usually stuffed and put in hotels on the airport as I suppose a monument to them. 2 more behavioral rules in Longyearbyen that are reminders from its mining days. Number 1 is to take off your shoes whenever you enter a building. This goes back to the miners having very dirty feet or very dirty shoes because of their work in the coal mine, and people didn't want them to carry in dirt. However, taking off your shoes when entering a building or putting on protective covers is very common everywhere in Scandinavia, because in winter you just have so much snow sticking to your shoes that you would otherwise leave dirty mud puddles wherever you go. And the other one is that you have an alcohol allowance, meaning that you have a stamp card where you have a certain allowance of alcohol that you can buy every month. This is because the miners used to get raging drunk, and to protect everyone in the community, including themselves, there was an alcohol allowance of how much one could get every month. Nature. What does it actually look like over there? Well, in my opinion, it looks a little bit like a mystical other planet. Approximately 60% of the archipelago are covered in glaciers, and the island features many mountains and fjords. How to get there? The only airport is Longyearbyen, and here planes arrive from Norway, from Oslo or Tromsø. From Oslo it takes about 3 hours, and from Tromsø about 1.5 hours. Outside of the airport, there will be buses waiting that are coordinated with the arrival times of the airplanes. Okay, now that we've covered so many of the oddities of the area, let's look a little bit at digital nomad must-haves before going into what you can actually do on Svalbard. The first, as always, is internet. Surprisingly, Svalbard has a fantastic internet connection. It actually is known to have one of the fastest internet connections in the world and has fiber cable. When it comes to infrastructure, that is a bit special in a place like this, meaning that there are not many roads. So you will most likely need a car to get around, like a 4-wheel drive car, and probably a snowmobile if you want to be able to leave Longyearbyen at all. Accommodation, well, this is another tough one. Svalbard has about 500 guest beds, as in hotels, guest houses and stuff that you can rent, and that is a good option. Other than that, it gets a little bit difficult. The majority of the apartments that you find on Svalbard mostly belong to the companies there, meaning that they rent them out to their employees. And when it comes to building or buying land, this is mostly not possible. The land can't be bought. There are a couple of people that do actually rent land from the government and then build their own houses on it, but that is a bit of a longer process and probably only worth the hassle if you intend to stay for many years. So this means that if you want to stay there as a digital nomad and not settle in the long run, your best bet is going to be renting, which is kind of expensive. Speaking of kind of expensive, everything in Svalbard is really expensive. This brings us to the cost of living. Everything is very, very expensive because everything needs to be imported. Svalbard does not have taxes, as I mentioned, so that does take a little bit away from it, but still, groceries and anything that you might need will cost quite a lot. Usually I consult the website Numbeo because it is crowdsourced and gives you a very accurate idea of the prices. But in this case, this wasn't possible because there was just not enough entries. However, I found a very interesting video by Cecilia Blomdahl, a Swede who lives on Svalbard permanently, who showed her budget in a YouTube video. I can warmly recommend her channel in general if you want to know more about life in Svalbard. And I will link the video down below so you can check it if you want to know more details about the prices there. Things to do in Longyearbyen and around. Well, Longyearbyen has around 16 pubs and restaurants, so you can spend a lot of time sitting in those, meeting locals and, chatting and enjoying life. There are also a few shops and even a couple of art and photography galleries, plus 2 museums. Other than that, there are plenty of fantastic things you can do in nature, not only in the summer but also in winter. Be that excursions with a snowmobile, discovering the vast beauty of this frozen land, taking excursions on a dog sled, going ice caving, hiking glaciers, hunting northern light, whale, seal and bird watching. So I know this might sound counterintuitive in a place like that, because it being cold and dark, you would probably, as a first instinct only want to stay inside. But even during the completely dark months of the year, there are a lot of outside activities that people do and that have a special kind of magic because it is so dark. Okay, so before I give you the details of how you can actually move to and live in Svalbard long and short term, I would really appreciate it if you would give this video a thumbs up if you got any value out of it. This is a free way for you to support me in growing my channel. Thanks a lot. As I mentioned, everyone has the right to live and settle in Svalbard. Even asylum seekers can live in Svalbard if they, for example, have been rejected by Norway. The problem for non-asylum seekers is that you need to be able to afford living there to support yourself. And for everyone, that you need to get there. And that's kind of the crux of the situation, because while you do not need any form of visa or residency to live in Svalbard, you need to get there. And the way to get there is through Norway, and Norway is part of the Schengen zone, meaning you are going to need a Schengen zone visa to enter Svalbard because you need to go through Norway, and to leave Svalbard you need a Schengen visa as well because you need to exit through Norway. So if you want to come and live in Svalbard, you need to have a Schengen visa and you need to have a re-entry Schengen visa. Schengen visas, once you are on Svalbard, can also be gotten through the governor's office. Another reason why you might be refused on Svalbard is if you pose a threat to the village community. So if you behave in a criminal or disorderly way. But that's it. Once you've made it to Svalbard, you can stay as long as you want, as long as you can afford it, and as long as you have accommodation, which, like I said, is most likely going to be a hotel accommodation. It is a special place indeed, and not for everybody, but as with most places that are this far from the mainstream, it has a magical, captivating beauty, and it is probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience. However, if you are not a person that enjoys cold and really Svalbard isn't your thing, check out my last video about the Digital Nomad Visa to Namibia, which is an absolutely magical place as well, just a lot warmer. And with that said, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.